I'm Amanda Cooper, 32, a dedicated architect building skyscrapers in Tokyo. When my family called about a big surprise for my birthday, I spent $2,000 on a last-minute flight home to Seattle. After 10 exhausting hours in the air, I dragged my jet-lagged body to our family house, heart racing with anticipation. The porch light was off. The door unlocked. Inside, darkness greeted me. In the kitchen trash, half my birthday cake. On the fridge, a sticky note. We used your money. $158,000 for the condo. My knees buckled. 8 years of saving gone. Let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted. This story of betrayal and what happened next might change how you see family forever. In our family, I was always the responsible one. From the time I was 12, I was the kid making sure bills got paid when mom and dad were having a rough month. By 16, I was working after school to help with groceries while my sister Stephanie got new clothes and cheerleading camps. That's just how it was in the Cooper household, and I accepted it because, well, that's what families do, right? They help each other. My passion for architecture started in high school when I would sketch dream houses during lunch breaks. None of my family understood it, but they didn't try to stop me either. When I got a scholarship to study architecture in college, they were proud in their way, though I remember my mother dying saying, "That's nice, honey, but you know you can always come back home if it's too hard." As if she expected me to fail. I didn't fail. I graduated with honors and landed an incredible opportunity with an international firm in Tokyo. The projects there were innovative and challenging, exactly what I dreamed of. Over 6 years, I worked my way up from junior architect to leading my own design team. We specialized in sustainable urban structures, and my name was becoming recognized in the industry. Tokyo became my home. I learned Japanese, made friends with my colleagues, and fell in love with the efficiency and beauty of the city. My apartment was small but perfectly located near Shinjuku Station, and I had made it my own space, something I never really had growing up sharing a room with Stephanie. Despite the distance, I maintained close ties with my family back in Seattle. Weekly video calls, care packages sent for holidays, and generous financial support when they needed it. Dad's car broke down? I sent money. Mom needed dental work? I covered it. Stephanie wanted to take courses at the community college? I paid her tuition. I never minded, really. I was making good money, and I wanted to give back to the family that raised me. The house in Seattle was technically mine, too. When Grandma Rose passed away 5 years ago, she left her house to me, knowing I was the only one responsible enough to maintain it. But I let my parents and occasionally Stephanie live there rent-free. It was a modest 3-bedroom in the Greenwood neighborhood, nothing fancy, but it had been in our family for generations. Meanwhile, I was saving for my own dream. A traditional Japanese-inspired home back in the Pacific Northwest, combining my two worlds. Every month, I diligently transferred money into a savings account. 8 years of disciplined saving, of saying no to vacations and designer clothes, of taking on extra projects and consultations. $158,000. It represented my future, my sanctuary, my reward for years of hard work. I should have seen the warning signs. The time my mother borrowed $5,000 for a medical emergency that turned out to be a cruise with her friends. Or when Stephanie used my credit card information to buy herself a MacBook Pro because she needed it for school, only to drop out 2 weeks later. Each time, I forgave them because they were family and families make mistakes. When they called me 3 weeks before my 32nd birthday, I was in the middle of finalizing designs for a major project. My father Frank's voice sounded unusually excited. "Amanda, honey, we've been planning something big for your birthday. You need to come home for it." I tried to explain that I was in the middle of a crucial project phase, but he insisted. "This is important, sweetheart. The whole family will be here. We've been organizing this for months. It would break your mother's heart if you missed it." My boss, Rachel Bennett, was understanding when I requested the time off. "Family comes first," she said with a smile, not knowing how those words would come back to haunt me. The flight from Tokyo to Seattle is brutal even in the best circumstances. I paid extra for a direct flight, splurging on business class because the regular seats were sold out. $2,000 for a last-minute ticket, but I told myself it was worth it to see my family's surprise. During the flight, I couldn't help but wonder what they had planned. Maybe they had finally accepted that architecture wasn't just a phase. Perhaps they had set up meetings with local firms so I could move back. Or was it something simpler, like a gathering of old friends I hadn't seen in years? Whatever it was, the fact that they had planned something significant for me made warmth spread through my chest. As the plane began its descent into Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, I looked out at the familiar landscape of the Pacific Northwest. The evergreen trees, the glimpse of water, the distant silhouette of Mount Rainier. Home. Despite building my life in Tokyo, Seattle would always be where I came from. I texted them when I landed. Just arrived. Can't wait to see everyone. Should be home in about an hour. No response, but I figured they were busy with preparations. I collected my luggage, grabbed a rideshare, and settled in for the 40-minute drive to Greenwood. The driver tried to make conversation, but I was too exhausted and excited to engage much. Jet lag was hitting me hard after being awake for nearly 24 hours straight. As we pulled onto my street, I noticed the house was dark. No cars in the driveway, no lights in the windows. Strange. I checked my watch, calculating the time difference again to make sure I hadn't made a mistake. No, it was just past 7 in the evening. Where was everyone? I paid the driver and dragged my suitcase up the familiar walkway, a sense of unease growing with each step. The key still worked in the lock, which was something at least. I pushed open the front door, calling out, "Hello? Mom? Dad? Stephanie? I'm home." Only silence answered me. I fumbled for the light switch, blinking as the entryway illuminated. Everything looked normal at first glance. The same faded wallpaper, the same family photos on the wall, the same scuff marks on the hardwood floor where the door always caught. But something felt off. I wheeled my suitcase inside and moved deeper into the house. The living room was unnaturally tidy, as if it had been cleaned for company that never arrived. No decorations, no welcome home banner, nothing to suggest a birthday celebration was imminent. Anyone home? I called again, my voice sounding small in the empty house. The kitchen light revealed the first real clue that something was wrong. On the counter sat an open box from Sweet Caroline's Bakery, my favorite since childhood. I peered inside, finding only half a cake. The side that remained had part of an inscription. "De Amanda." The rest was gone. More disturbing was what I found in the trash can beneath the sink. The other half of my birthday cake, unceremoniously dumped face down among coffee grounds and empty containers. Beside it were crumpled paper plates, used plastic forks, and wadded-up napkins. Evidence of a celebration that had happened without me. My heart began to race as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Had I misunderstood? Had they celebrated without me and then left? But they were the ones who insisted I come home for this specific date. That's when I saw it. A bright yellow sticky note attached to the refrigerator door. In my mother's distinctive handwriting. "Amanda, we used your money. $158,000 for the condo. Keys are with us. Call when you get in." I read it 3 times before the words sank in. My money. My savings. The fund I had nurtured for 8 years, building dollar by dollar toward my dream home. They couldn't have. They wouldn't have. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. I entered my password incorrectly twice before finally getting it right. The savings account that had held my future showed a balance of $246.12. A text message notification popped up on my screen. From Stephanie. "Thanks for the upgrade, bro. Best birthday gift ever." Attached was a photo of her posing in front of a sleek kitchen with granite countertops, making a peace sign. In the background, I could see my parents raising wine glasses. My knees gave out. I sank to the kitchen floor, the cold tile pressing against my legs. This couldn't be happening. There must be some explanation, some terrible misunderstanding. I called my mother's cell phone with shaking fingers. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice artificially bright. "Amanda, you made it. Are you at the house?" "Mom," my voice cracked. "What did you do?" Where's my money? There was a pause. Then my mother's tone changed to something harder, defensive. Now, Amanda, don't start with the dramatics. We've been living in that cramped house for years while you're off in Japan, living the high life. Stephanie needed a decent place, and you had all that money just sitting there. You always said you wanted to help the family. Help the family? You stole from me. That was my savings for my own house. My father's voice came on the line, evidently on speaker. Princess, we didn't steal anything. Remember when you added your mother to your savings account before you moved to Japan? In case of emergencies? The memory hit me like a physical blow. 6 years ago, when I first moved to Tokyo, I had added my mother as a joint account holder in case something happened to me overseas. I had meant to remove her once I got settled but had forgotten. For 6 years, she had access to my growing savings and never touched it until now. That doesn't make it right, I whispered. How could you do this to me? On my birthday? Oh, stop being so selfish. Stephanie had apparently grabbed the phone. You make tons of money in Japan. You can save it up again. I needed this condo. Do you know how embarrassing it is to still be living at home at 28? And Mom and Dad deserved an upgrade too. We did this for all of us, my mother added. We're family. We share things. You told me to fly home, I said, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. You said you planned something big for my birthday. Well, we did. My mother sounded genuinely confused at my anger. We used your birthday as the reason to finally do this. It's a big step for the family. And we saved you some cake. Half a cake. In the trash. Don't be ungrateful. My father chimed in. We were going to take you to see the condo tomorrow. You'll love it. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a view of the lake. Much nicer than this old place. I ended the call without responding, too stunned to form words. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated that I couldn't process it. They had used my birthday as a cover to steal my savings. They had let me spend $2,000 on a last-minute flight for a celebration that never existed. They had taken 8 years of my hard work and discipline without a second thought. As I sat on the kitchen floor, memories flooded back. The Christmas when my parents gave Stephanie a car while I received a sweater. The time I came home from college to find they had converted my bedroom into a home gym without telling me. The countless instances when my achievements were minimized while Stephanie's smallest efforts were celebrated. This wasn't new behavior. It was just the most extreme version of a pattern that had existed my entire life. I had always been the responsible one, the one who gave, the one who could be counted on to sacrifice. And they had always been the takers. My phone buzzed again with another text from Stephanie. By the way, we're having a housewarming party next weekend. Bring champagne from that fancy store you mentioned once. The expensive kind. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of what they had done. Only entitlement and expectation that I would continue in my assigned role. The reliable daughter. The human A-team. The eternal supporter of their wants and needs. I turned my phone off and sat in the silent, empty house that was technically mine but had never really felt like it. Tomorrow, I would have to face them, see the condo they had purchased with my stolen dreams. Tonight, I just needed to breathe through the pain and betrayal threatening to drown me. Sleep was impossible. I lay on my old bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every interaction that had led to this moment. The sheets smelled musty, as if no one had bothered to freshen the room, even knowing I was coming. Another small betrayal atop the massive one. Around 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep and sat at the small desk that still held some of my old architecture books. My jet lag and emotional turmoil had created a strange, disconnected feeling, as if I were floating outside my body, watching someone else's life implode. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account again, hoping against hope that what I'd seen earlier was some kind of technical glitch. But the numbers didn't lie. $158,000 gone. Transferred to another account 4 days ago, 2 days after they called to insist I come home. The timing made it clear. They knew I would check my accounts eventually, so they needed me distracted by the surprise birthday narrative until the money was safely spent on a property they could claim was for all of us. On a whim, I tried logging into my retirement account, then my investment portfolio. To my immense relief, they hadn't accessed those. They either didn't know about them or couldn't figure out how to get in. Small mercies. I called the bank's 24-hour customer service line, my voice eerily calm as I explained the situation to the representative named Timothy. "I'm sorry, Ms. Cooper, but if your mother is a joint account holder, she has legal access to the funds," Timothy explained after looking into it. "There's nothing we can do from a bank perspective as this isn't technically fraud. Even if she never contributed a penny to that account? Even if all the deposits came from my paychecks?" Unfortunately, yes. Joint accounts don't distinguish whose money is whose. Both parties have equal rights to the funds. I thanked him and hung up, a cold clarity beginning to replace the shock. I had been naive. I had trusted too much. I had forgotten a fundamental truth. Just because people are family doesn't mean they have your best interests at heart. Dawn was breaking when I finally showered and changed clothes. I tried calling my parents and Stephanie several times, but all three had apparently turned off their phones. They knew what they had done was wrong, even if they wouldn't admit it. I sent a group text. "We need to talk about this. Answer your phones." No response. By 10 in the morning, I was pacing the house, anger replacing the hollow feeling in my chest. Every photo on the wall, every piece of furniture I had paid to maintain or replace over the years, every repair I had funded, all took on a new, sinister meaning. This house had been another way they had used me. In a moment of clarity, I realized I needed legal advice. I called Michael Taylor, a college friend who had become a lawyer and had moved back to Seattle a few years ago. "Amanda? Long time no hear. How's Tokyo treating you?" His familiar voice brought the first genuine smile to my face in what felt like forever. "Tokyo's great, Michael. Unfortunately, I'm actually in Seattle dealing with a family emergency. Do you have time to meet today? I need legal advice." 2 hours later, I was sitting in Michael's downtown office, pouring out the whole sordid story. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing more concerned with each detail. "Legally, this is complicated," he said when I finished. "Your mother had the right to access that joint account, so criminal charges would be difficult to pursue. However, there are some civil options we could explore." "Like what?" "Well, for starters, you own the house they've been living in. Have you ever had a formal rental agreement with them?" I shook my head. "No, they're family. I just let them live there." "That actually works in your favor. They're technically month-to-month tenants, which gives you certain rights as the property owner." A plan began to form in my mind, but I pushed it aside for the moment. "What about the condo? Can I make any claim on it since it was purchased with my money?" Michael looked thoughtful. "Possibly. If we can prove the funds were taken under false pretenses, even if the account was joint, we might have a case. It would be messy, though, and would definitely permanently damage your relationship with your family." I laughed bitterly. "I think that ship has sailed, Michael." As I left his office with a list of possible actions and the promise of his help, I felt a strange mix of grief and determination. The family I thought I had was an illusion. The people who should have loved me most had seen me as nothing more than a resource to exploit. The worst part was discovering evidence that this betrayal had been planned for months. When I returned to the house and really began looking around, I found mail indicating they had been touring condos for at least 6 months. A brochure for Lakeside Towers was pinned to a corkboard in the kitchen, dated 3 months ago, with the exact unit they had purchased circled in red. They had been planning to take my money even as they called every week, asking about my life, telling me they missed me, reminding me of my obligations to family. The depth of the deception made me physically ill. By evening, I still hadn't heard from any of them. I drove by the address on the condo brochure, confirming my suspicions when I saw my father's car and my mother's distinctive garden gnome already placed by the entrance. They had moved in already, not even waiting until after my supposed birthday celebration. Back at the house, I opened a bottle of wine I found in the cupboard, one I had probably paid for at some point, and contemplated my next steps. I had come to a crossroads. I could forgive again, write off the money as an expensive lesson, and try to maintain some semblance of a relationship with my family. Or I could stand up for myself, finally, and show them that their actions had consequences. The wine glass felt heavy in my hand as memories washed over me. My high school graduation, when my parents left early to take Stephanie shopping. My college scholarship announcement, met with "that's nice, but don't get a big head about it." My first major architecture award, which they didn't attend because it conflicted with Stephanie's pottery class showcase. A lifetime of being undervalued, taken for granted, and exploited. And now, the ultimate betrayal, stealing the physical manifestation of my dreams and hard work. Something shifted inside me as I sat alone in that empty house. A lifetime of accommodation and understanding hardened into resolve. I would no longer be the family doormat. I would no longer sacrifice my needs for people who saw me only as a means to an end. My phone pinged with an email notification. It was from Rachel, my boss in Tokyo, checking in on how the surprise birthday celebration was going. I hadn't told anyone about what had happened, too ashamed and shocked to put it into words. But as I typed my response, the words flowed out. The empty house, the stolen money, the casual cruelty of it all. Rachel's reply was immediate and supportive, offering extended leave if I needed it, and expressing outrage on my behalf. "Family isn't just about blood, Amanda," she wrote. "It's about respect and love. What they did shows neither. Remember, you have people who value you for who you are, not what you can give them." Those words were the final piece I needed. As midnight approached, I made my decision. Tomorrow would be the beginning of a new chapter, one where I valued myself as much as I had always valued others. Morning light filtered through the dusty blinds as I awoke from a fitful sleep. My phone showed 5 missed calls, all from numbers I didn't recognize. Curious, I listened to the voicemails. Real estate agents, all of them, responding to an inquiry about selling a house in Greenwood. My house. Confused, I checked my email and found a notification from Zillow Quick, a service I'd never signed up for. Apparently, someone had created an account in my name and listed my house for sale at 20% below market value, guaranteeing a quick sale. Stephanie. It had to be. She had access to my email password because I'd let her use my Netflix account. This was a new level of audacity, trying to sell my house out from under me to perhaps finance further upgrades to their condo lifestyle. As I was processing this, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Amanda, what do you think you're doing?" Her voice was shrill with indignation. "What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. We just got an email saying our house is being sold. There's already an open house scheduled for tomorrow." The pieces clicked together. It wasn't Stephanie who had listed the house. It was Michael, my lawyer friend. After our conversation yesterday, he must have taken immediate action, using the power of attorney document I had signed years ago when I moved to Japan. A cold smile spread across my face. "It's not your house, Mom. It's mine. Grandma left it to me, remember? But we live here. You can't just sell it without talking to us. Like you talked to me before taking my savings? My entire life savings." There was a pause. Then my mother's voice turned wheedling. "Honey, we've been over this. That money was going to benefit all of us. The condo has a guest room for when you visit. It's an investment for the family."
No, Mom.
"It was my investment for my future. You stole it, and now you're facing the consequences." "You wouldn't really make your own parents homeless," she scoffed, but I could hear the first note of uncertainty. "I'm not making you homeless. You have a beautiful new condo, remember? Paid for with my money." The line went silent for a moment. "We can't keep the condo," my mother finally admitted, her voice small. "We used the money for the down payment, but we can't afford the monthly fees on our own. We were counting on you to help with that too." The audacity was breathtaking. They had stolen my savings for a down payment on a property they couldn't even afford to maintain, assuming I would continue to fund their lifestyle. "That sounds like a you problem," I said, surprising myself with the hardness in my voice. "The house is being sold. You have 30 days to vacate, as per the legal notice you'll receive today." "Amanda Jean Cooper, we are your parents. You can't do this to us. Watch me." I hung up, my heart pounding but my mind clearer than it had been in days. A text came through from Michael. Hope you don't mind the initiative. When I saw what they did, I couldn't wait to help you fight back. The house should sell quickly at that price. I texted back my thanks, feeling a weight lifting from my shoulders. For the first time in my adult life, I was putting myself first. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. The next call was from Stephanie, her voice a strange mix of anger and panic. What the hell, Amanda? Mom's having a complete meltdown. What did you say to her? I told her the truth. The house is being sold. You all need to find somewhere else to live. You can't do that. Where are we supposed to go? I don't know, Stephanie. Where was I supposed to go when you stole my life savings? Where was I supposed to build my future? Oh my God, you're still on about that? It's just money. You can make more. Her dismissal of 8 years of sacrifice ignited something primal inside me. It wasn't just money. It was my dream. It was security I worked for while you were spending Dad's disability checks on concert tickets. It was my future that you decided was less important than your desire for granite countertops. We invited you to be part of it, she protested. We got a place big enough for you to stay when you visit. How generous of you to offer me a guest room in the home I paid for, I replied, sarcasm dripping from every word. Tell me, did you even celebrate my birthday? Or was that cake just for show when I arrived? Her silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. You know what, Stephanie? I'm done being the family ATM. Sell the condo, move into an apartment you can actually afford, and start acting like an adult. You'll regret this, she threatened. When you're old and alone because you turned your back on family, you'll regret it. I'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who see me as nothing but a resource to exploit. After hanging up, I sat in the quiet house, letting the magnitude of what I'd done sink in. I had initiated a seismic shift in my family dynamics. There would be fallout, attempts at manipulation, probably flying monkeys in the form of extended family members they would enlist to make me feel guilty. But underneath the anxiety was something new. Pride. I was finally standing up for myself. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Amanda, it's Aunt Judith. Your mother called me hysterical about you selling the house.
What's going on?
Aunt Judith. My mother's sister, who had been estranged from the family for years after a falling out I never fully understood. We hadn't spoken since I was in college. I called her back, not wanting this to be another text conversation. Amanda? Is that you? Her voice was just as I remembered, warm and direct.
Aunt Judith.
It's been a long time. Too long. Your mother called me in quite a state. Something about you selling the house from under them and being vindictive. That doesn't sound like the Amanda I remember. I took a deep breath and told her everything. The savings account, the fake birthday surprise, the half-eaten cake in the trash, the condo they couldn't afford, all of it. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making sounds of disbelief or sympathy. When I finished, there was a long pause. I always worried about this, she finally said. The way your parents favored Stephanie and took advantage of your responsible nature. It's why your grandmother left the house to you, you know. She saw it too. You're not going to tell me I should forgive them because they're family? I asked cautiously. Aunt Judith laughed, a sharp sound without humor. Honey, I cut contact with your mother 15 years ago when she tried to forge my signature on a loan application. Some people don't change. Some people don't deserve unlimited chances just because you share DNA. Her validation brought tears to my eyes. For the first time since arriving back in Seattle, I didn't feel crazy or overreacting. What should I do now? I asked, suddenly feeling very young and uncertain. Exactly what you're doing. Protect yourself. Set boundaries. Let them face the consequences of their actions. It's the only way they might ever learn, though I wouldn't hold my breath on that. After talking with Aunt Judith for nearly an hour, catching up on years of missed connection, I felt centered again. The path forward was clear. I would sell the house, return to my life in Tokyo, and rebuild my savings. I would maintain contact with those who truly cared about me, like Michael and Rachel, and now Aunt Judith, and I would distance myself from those who had proven they saw me only as a means to an end. That afternoon, I received an email from the real estate agent Michael had contacted. There was already serious interest in the house, with 3 offers likely coming in by tomorrow. The Seattle market was hot, and even at below market value, I would walk away with enough to restart my savings fund. As I prepared for bed that night, my phone pinged with a notification from a local news site. I nearly dropped it when I saw the headline, "Local family claims daughter selling home out from under them out of spite." There was my father, teary-eyed, telling a reporter how his ungrateful daughter was punishing them for using money that she had always intended for family use anyway. My mother clutched a tissue, lamenting how after all they had sacrificed to raise me, this was how I repaid them. The story was a masterclass in manipulation, painting me as the villain and them as innocent victims. But they had overplayed their hand. The comment section was filled with skepticism, with many pointing out inconsistencies in their story and questioning why they were living in a luxury condo if they were about to be homeless. I should have been furious, but instead, I felt an odd sense of calm. This desperate attempt to control the narrative only confirmed I was doing the right thing. They were showing their true colors for everyone to see. I took a screenshot of the article and sent it to Michael with the message, "I think we just got handed excellent leverage for whatever comes next." His reply was immediate. "Absolutely. Public defamation adds another layer to our potential case. Don't worry, we'll handle this." For the first time since finding that sticky note on the refrigerator, I fell asleep quickly and slept soundly. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but I was ready to face them. The family that had betrayed me had unwittingly given me the greatest gift of all: freedom from their manipulation and the strength to value myself. The house sold in 3 days. 3 offers came in, all above asking price despite the initial below-market listing. Michael advised me to accept the all-cash offer that could close in 2 weeks, and I agreed. The buyers were a young couple expecting their first child, excited about the neighborhood and the home's character. There was poetic justice in knowing the house would go to a family that appreciated it. Meanwhile, the fallout from my parents' media stunt backfired spectacularly. The reporter who wrote the initial piece did a follow-up investigation and uncovered the truth, that my parents and sister had taken my life savings without permission and were now living in a luxury condo they couldn't afford. The updated story painted a very different picture, one of entitled family members facing the consequences of their actions. Stephanie was furious when her workplace saw the article. She had apparently told colleagues and her boss that she had invested wisely to afford her new upscale address. Now exposed as having taken her sister's money, she faced uncomfortable questions about her integrity. "You've ruined my reputation," she screamed over the phone. My boss pulled me aside to ask if I steal from the company too. "This is your fault." "No, Stephanie, it's your fault for lying and taking what wasn't yours," I replied calmly. "Actions have consequences." The condo association also took notice of a news story. Michael informed me that they had strict requirements about owners' financial qualifications. The revelation that my family had used stolen funds for the down payment and couldn't actually afford the monthly fees had triggered a review of their purchase. My father called next, his voice a mixture of anger and desperation. "The condo board is making us verify our income. We can't pass their requirements without your help. You need to write a letter saying you're contributing to our monthly expenses." "No, Dad, I don't need to do that." "Then we'll lose the condo. Is that what you want? For your family to be homeless?" The manipulation was so transparent now that I could see it clearly. "You won't be homeless. You'll have to live within your means, like everyone else does. We're your parents. We raised you, and I've been supporting you financially for years. That ends now." I hung up, blocking his number immediately afterward. I did the same with my mother's and Stephanie's numbers. If they wanted to communicate with me, they could do it through Michael. With the house sale proceeding quickly, I turned my attention to other matters. The joint bank account was closed. My email passwords were changed. My Netflix, Amazon, and other subscription services were updated to remove their access. One by one, I cut the financial ties that had bound us together, ties that I now realized had been chains keeping me tethered to their constant demands. Aunt Judith invited me to stay with her while the house sale finalized. Her comfortable apartment in Queen and became a sanctuary, a place where I could process my feelings without the constant reminder of betrayal that the family house had become. "You know," she said one evening as we shared a bottle of wine on her balcony, "your mother did something similar to me years ago. Not as extreme as taking my savings, but she borrowed money repeatedly with no intention of paying it back. When I finally said no, she turned the family against me, claiming I was selfish and uncaring. How did you deal with it?"
I asked.
She smiled, the lines around her eyes crinkling. "I built a life filled with people who valued me for myself, not what I could give them. It was the best decision I ever made." I thought about Rachel and my team in Tokyo, about Michael's immediate willingness to help, about the friends I'd made in Japan who checked in on me daily during this ordeal. I had people who truly cared. I wasn't alone, even if my blood relatives had betrayed me. The next strategic move came when Michael discovered that my parents had already taken out a second mortgage on the condo, apparently to buy new furniture and a car for Stephanie. They were sinking deeper into debt, all while expecting me to eventually cave and bail them out. "We have two options," Michael explained. "We can file a civil suit claiming the money was taken under false pretenses, which would be messy and drawn out. Or we can use the leverage we have from their public statements and financial precarity to negotiate a settlement." "What kind of settlement?" "They sign over a portion of the condo's value to you, equivalent to what they took from your savings. If they ever sell it, you get that money first. And they sign a legally binding agreement to never publicly discuss you or your finances again." It was elegant in its simplicity. I wouldn't get my money back immediately, but I would eventually recoup my losses. More importantly, it would sever the financial relationship permanently. "Let's do it," I agreed. The negotiations were handled entirely through lawyers. I never had to see or speak to my family directly, a blessing given the emotional toll the situation had taken. Their initial reaction was predictably indignant, but as their financial situation grew more precarious, they became more amenable to terms. 3 weeks after discovering the empty house and stolen savings, I signed the final settlement papers in Michael's office. My parents and Stephanie would keep the condo, but a lien was placed on the property ensuring I would recoup my $158,000 plus interest when it was eventually sold. They were prohibited from discussing me publicly, including on social media, under penalty of significant financial consequences. Most importantly, they acknowledged in writing that the money had been taken without proper authorization, a small vindication that meant more to me than I expected. "How does it feel?" Michael asked as I set down the pen after signing. I considered the question carefully. Like putting down a heavy weight I've been carrying for years without realizing it. That evening, Aunt Judith hosted a small dinner to celebrate. Michael came, as did 2 friends from college who still lived in Seattle and had reached out after seeing the news stories. We ate good food, drank excellent wine, and shared stories that had nothing to do with my family drama. For the first time since arriving back in the States, I laughed freely, without the shadow of betrayal hanging over me. The weight hadn't just been the recent theft of my savings. It had been a lifetime of being undervalued and exploited by the people who should have loved me most. As the evening wound down, Rachel called from Tokyo with news. The project I had been working on before this ordeal had been approved for the next phase, with me still leading the team. My job was secure. My future in Tokyo waited for me. "When are you coming back?" she asked. "We miss you." I looked around at the small gathering of people who had supported me through the darkest period of my life, then out the window at the Seattle skyline glittering in the distance. Next week, I decided. It's time to go home. Not the home of my childhood, which had never truly been mine, but the home I had built for myself across the ocean. The place where I was valued for my talent and character, not just what I could provide. The house sale closed the following Monday. After paying off the remaining mortgage and settling all fees, I walked away with just over $200,000. My stolen savings were technically still tied up in the condo, but this money would allow me to restart my dream fund with even more than I had lost. Sometimes I realized what seems like an ending is actually a beginning in disguise. My flight back to Tokyo was scheduled for Saturday morning. 5 weeks had passed since I'd flown home for a birthday surprise that never existed. In that time, my entire understanding of family had been dismantled and rebuilt. 2 days before my departure, as I was having lunch with Aunt Judith near Pike Place Market, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Amanda. It was my mother's voice, sounding smaller than I'd ever heard it. Please don't hang up. I signaled to Aunt Judith that I needed a moment and stepped outside the restaurant. What do you want? We need to talk. In person. Please. I don't think that's a good idea. Things are falling apart, Amanda. Her voice cracked. The condo association is evicting us. The bank is reviewing our mortgage application because of the news stories. Stephanie lost her job. We have nowhere to go. The old me would have immediately offered help, opened my wallet, sacrificed my needs for theirs. But that person was gone, replaced by someone who recognized manipulation for what it was. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, meaning it. Despite everything, I didn't wish homelessness on them. But these are the consequences of your actions. We know that now. She paused, and I heard what sounded like genuine tears. Your father and we've had a lot of time to think about what we did. How we've treated you all these years. We were wrong, Amanda. So wrong. I stood silently, waiting for the ask that would inevitably follow this admission. But we need, or so if you could just, that had punctuated every apology they'd ever offered. But instead, she said, we don't expect your forgiveness. We don't deserve it. But before you leave the country again, we'd like a chance to say goodbye. To see you one last time. Against my better judgment and Michael's advice, I agreed to meet them at a coffee shop near Aunt Judith's apartment. Neutral territory, public, with Judith and Michael both on standby in case things went sideways. They arrived looking nothing like the confident, entitled people who had taken my money and expected me to accept it. My father had lost weight, his clothes hanging loosely on his frame. My mother's hair was unstyled, her face bare of the makeup she usually wouldn't leave the house without. Stephanie wasn't with them. Thank you for coming, my father said as they sat across from me, both clutching coffee cups like lifelines. I nodded but said nothing, waiting. We've lost everything, my mother began. The condo association gave us 30 days to vacate after their financial review. The bank is investigating us for mortgage fraud because we misrepresented our income. Stephanie's company let her go when they found out she had been involved in taking your money because she handles client accounts. I'm sorry you're going through that, I said and meant it. Despite their betrayal, I took no joy in their suffering. No, my father shook his head firmly. Don't apologize. Not to us. We did this to ourselves.
To you.
My mother reached across the table, stopping short of touching my hand when she saw me stiffen. We've been terrible parents to you, Amanda. For years, we took advantage of your success, your generosity, your responsible nature. We favored Stephanie because she was more demanding, more needy. We assumed you were fine because you never complained. And then we crossed a line that can't be uncrossed, my father added, his voice breaking. We stole from you. We betrayed your trust in the most fundamental way. There's no excuse for that. I studied their faces, looking for signs of the manipulation I'd grown so accustomed to. But all I saw was defeat and genuine remorse. Still, words were easy. What do you want from me? I asked directly. They exchanged glances. Nothing, my mother said. We don't deserve anything from you. We just wanted you to know that we understand what we did. The depth of our betrayal, and that we'll spend the rest of our lives regretting it. Where will you go? Your father's brother in Portland has offered us his garage apartment until we get back on our feet, my mother explained. It's small, but it's more than we deserve right now. And Stephanie? She's staying with a friend. She's not handling this well. She still blames you, thinks you overreacted. She's not ready to take responsibility like we are. That sounded like the Stephanie I knew. Always the victim, never at fault. I'm not sure what you want me to say, I admitted. I can't just forgive and forget. The trust is gone. We know. My father nodded solemnly. We don't expect forgiveness. We just wanted to see you before you left, to tell you face to face how sorry we are, and to wish you well in your life. You deserve every success and happiness, Amanda. You always have. As they stood to leave, my mother hesitated, then pulled a small package from her purse. This was your grandmother's. She wanted you to have it, but we kept it when she passed. Another thing we took that wasn't ours to take. Inside the package was my grandmother's jade pendant, the one she had always promised would be mine someday. I had asked about it after her funeral, and my mother had claimed it was lost. Thank you, I said quietly, closing my hand around the cool stone. They left without another word, two diminished figures walking out of the coffee shop and, I suspected, out of my life for good. I sat there for a long time afterward, turning the pendant over in my hands. Their apology changed nothing about what they had done, yet it shifted something inside me. Not forgiveness, exactly, but a loosening of the anger that had been my constant companion for weeks. Later that evening, as I was packing my suitcase at Aunt Judith's apartment, my phone buzzed with a text from Stephanie. They told me you met with them. Must be nice to see them grovel. Hope you're happy with what you've done to this family. Some people never learn, never take responsibility. I blocked her number without responding. The next day, Michael brought the final paperwork from the house sale. Everything was in order, the funds already transferred to my account. What will you do about your parents? He asked as we shared a goodbye lunch. Nothing, I said, surprised by how certain I felt. They made their choices. Now they live with the consequences. I'll honor the legal agreement we made, but beyond that, I need to focus on rebuilding my own life. And if they reach out again? If they need help? I considered this carefully. Then I'll evaluate that situation when it happens. But I won't sacrifice my well-being for theirs anymore. That pattern is broken. Michael smiled, raising his glass in a toast. To new patterns. To new patterns, I echoed, clinking my glass against his. On my last night in Seattle, Aunt Judith hosted a small farewell dinner. As we sat on her balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, she handed me an envelope. A going-away present, she explained. Open it when you're back in Tokyo. The next morning, as my plane lifted off from Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, I felt none of the conflict or sadness I had expected. Instead, there was only a sense of rightness, of moving toward rather than away. 5 weeks ago, I had flown to Seattle full of anticipation for a family celebration that never existed. Now I was returning to Tokyo with clear eyes and hard-won wisdom about what family truly meant. It wasn't always about blood. Sometimes it was about who showed up when you needed them most. Sometimes it was about who saw your value beyond what you could provide. Sometimes it was about building your own circle of support when the one you were born into failed you. As the Washington coastline disappeared beneath the clouds, I opened the envelope Aunt Judith had given me. Inside was a card with her neat handwriting. Family is a privilege, not a right. Some lose the privilege through their actions. Some earn it through their love. I'm proud to call you my niece, not just by blood, but by choice. Beneath the card was a check for $10,000. Not to replace what I had lost, but to help rebuild. A gesture of genuine support with no strings attached. I tucked it carefully into my wallet, knowing I would use it to start my new savings fund. Not for a house this time, at least not yet. First, I would travel, experience the world, invest in myself in ways I had always put off in favor of financial security. The betrayal had taken my savings, but it had given me something more valuable. Freedom from obligations that had never truly been mine to bear. 6 months after returning to Tokyo, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over the skyline. Unlike my previous cramped space near Shinjuku, this apartment in Meguro offered room to breathe. With a small second bedroom, I had converted into a home office for freelance projects. The promotion Rachel had hinted at before my world imploded had materialized upon my return. senior design architect, with a substantial salary increase and creative control over new sustainable housing projects. The irony wasn't lost on me. My career designing homes for others was thriving just as my own dream home had slipped through my fingers. But that dream hadn't died. It had simply been deferred and transformed. My new savings account already held $70,000, a combination of my promotion bonus, freelance work, and careful budgeting. I had learned that security came not just from a number in a bank account, but from self-reliance and a supportive community. That community had expanded in unexpected ways since my return. Rachel had become not just a boss but a true friend, inviting me to family dinners and cultural events around Tokyo. My team at work rallied around me, their respect deepening when they saw how I had handled adversity with grace and determination. I had also reconnected with Japanese friends I had somewhat neglected during years of focusing primarily on supporting my family back home. Hannah, who taught English at a local university, had introduced me to her book club. Kenji, an engineer I had collaborated with on several projects, had become a regular hiking companion, showing me parts of Japan I had never explored despite living here for years. Weekly video calls with Aunt Judith kept me connected to the one family member who had proven worthy of the title. Through her, I occasionally heard news of my parents and Stephanie. They had indeed moved to Portland, my parents living in my uncle's garage apartment while they rebuilt their finances. Stephanie had found another job, though at a significantly lower salary than before. They had not reached out directly, honoring the legal agreement we had signed. Part of me was relieved, while another part sometimes wondered if their coffee shop apology had been genuine. But I had learned not to dwell on questions without answers, to focus instead on the present and future I was building. The settlement lien on the condo remained in place, a financial safety net I might or might not ever need to access. The money itself had become less important than what it represented: accountability for actions, consequences for betrayal. My new apartment contained no family photos from my childhood or previous life. Instead, the walls displayed artwork by local Japanese artists, photographs I had taken during weekend explorations of my adopted country, and a single framed note from Rachel that had been on my desk when I returned. Sometimes the strongest foundations are built after everything has been torn down. In place of honor on my bedside table sat my grandmother's jade pendant, now on a new silver chain. I wore it often, a reminder that even in the darkest betrayal, there can be reclamation of what truly belongs to your spirit. The journey of healing wasn't linear. Some days, something as simple as seeing a family celebrating together in a restaurant could trigger a wave of grief for what I had lost, or more accurately, for what I had never truly had. But those moments grew less frequent and less intense as time passed. What replaced them was a growing sense of lightness. The weight of constant obligation, of one-sided giving, of walking on eggshells around fragile family egos, had been lifted. I could make decisions based solely on what was right for me, without calculating the potential fallout from disappointed relatives. Perhaps the most unexpected development came 3 months after my return to Tokyo, when I received an email from a literary agent who had read about my story in a Seattle newspaper feature. She suggested my experience might make a compelling memoir about family dynamics, financial abuse, and rebuilding after betrayal. After some consideration, I began writing in the evenings and on weekends. The process was therapeutic, transforming painful memories into narrative, finding patterns I hadn't noticed while living through the events. My working title: The Birthday That Wasn't, Rebuilding After Family Betrayal. The advance for the book contract added another $20,000 to my savings, money that felt different from my architecture earnings. This was compensation for pain transformed into wisdom, a testament to the growth that can come from even the most devastating experiences. Today marked exactly 6 months since my return to Japan, and I had planned a small celebration with friends at my apartment. As I arranged appetizers and chilled wine, my phone chimed with an email notification. It was from Michael, my lawyer friend in Seattle, with the subject line, "Thought you should know." The condo had been listed for sale. My parents and Stephanie were moving back to Seattle, downsizing to a modest apartment. The attached listing showed a property already stripped of the luxury furnishings they had purchased with my money. The asking price would cover their remaining mortgage and my lien, with little left over. I felt no satisfaction at their financial struggles, but no responsibility for them either. They were adults facing the natural consequences of their choices, just as I had faced the consequences of trusting too much and establishing too few boundaries. My doorbell rang, announcing the arrival of my first guests. I put away my phone, leaving thoughts of Seattle and family betrayal behind. Tonight was about celebrating the life I had rebuilt, the community I had strengthened, the wisdom I had earned through pain. Later, as my small but vibrant gathering of friends filled my apartment with laughter and conversation, Rachel raised her glass for a toast. To Amanda, she said, who showed us all that losing everything doesn't mean you're lost. Sometimes it just means you're finally found. As glasses clinked and smiles warmed the room, I felt a sense of completion. The circle had closed. The lessons had been learned. The betrayal that was meant to diminish me had instead become the catalyst for a richer, more authentic life. I had lost a house but found a home, lost a family but created a community, lost savings but gained invaluable wisdom about self-worth and boundaries. Some betrayals never fully heal, but they can transform us in ways we never imagined possible. They can strip away illusions and leave us standing in a difficult but necessary truth, that sometimes the people who should love us the most are the ones least capable of true love. And that's not our burden to bear or our problem to fix. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led to positive change in your life? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please like and subscribe to support more stories of resilience and renewal. Remember, sometimes the most painful endings create space for the most beautiful beginnings. Thank you for being part of my healing journey, and I wish you strength in yours.